What's up guys, it's Lord Botha here with another video, and we have an Ubisoft win? I guess that's one way you could see it, because what they're actually announcing is something that's more of a lateral move, or maybe a negative, but is being taken as an absolute win because of the fallout and the reaction to it. Let's take a look at the articles and see what we can make of it. This comes to us from IGN. Ubisoft's founding Guillemot family and Tencent Media reportedly considering taking the company private amid high-profile flops and share prices collapse. Ubisoft founding family and shareholder Tencent Media are reportedly considering teaming up to take the company private following a number of high-profile video game flops and collapse of its share price. Now, we had heard rumors earlier this year, just a month or so ago, of Tencent Media, a minority shareholder in Ubisoft, reportedly saying that they had a desire to potentially take the company private and actually make this move, and it seems like that move is increasingly more likely as time is moving on. Ubisoft had endured an awful year with disappointing returns from Call of Duty competitor XDefiant, and most recently Star Wars Outlaws. And that's mostly because XDefiant was a mess when it launched, and it made the mistake of calling itself a Call of Duty killer, which any game that calls itself a Call of Duty killer is immediately going to be eviscerated for any kind of flaws that it has in it. In Star Wars Outlaws, it's interesting because it's just being outright admitted now that Outlaws is a failure. That's how bad Outlaws is doing. It's doing so bad that the company has to actually just admit that it's a failure. That's something they never want to do. It delayed Assassin's Creed Shadows into 2025 following poor sales of Outlaws, and its staff have arranged a strike later this month. Yes, in case you guys didn't know, the French Video Game Industry Workers Union has arranged a strike against Ubisoft because they had the audacity to ask workers to return to work at the office for 3 days a week after they've been working remotely for going on years now. Now, whatever you may think about that, on whether workers should be going back to work in the office or not, the fact remains that it's another problem that Ubisoft is going to have to deal with. That in this critical moment, when they need all hands on deck to help out with future releases, as they claim that they're putting out later in the second quarter of 2025, as well as the apparent fixes they need to put in for Assassin's Creed Shadows, even though they are pretty sketchy on the details on what those fixes are and why the game has been delayed until February, with rumors that it could be delayed even further. While they need all hands on deck to fix those problems and deal with those issues, it looks like their workers are planning on going on strike. In a recent note to investors, Guillemot acknowledged that the company's second quarter fell short of expectations and vowed to launch a review aimed at further improving our execution. He also addressed some of the cultural conversations happening around the company lately, which have intensified around Star Wars Outlaws and the upcoming Assassin's Creed Shadows. Yes, we covered it in a different video. Guillemot and Ubisoft are launching an internal investigation essentially into why their devs are so crap at putting out games and why their games keep failing with audiences. And that address on cultural conversations he's talking about is the claims that their games are incredibly woke and focusing heavily on DEI agenda. And in that statement, Guillemot was basically saying, hey, our company doesn't push any kind of agenda. Which, if that's true, you should probably let your devs know that, because it seems like they don't understand that fully. And there's also rumors that they have been working with Sweet Baby Inc., and we know completely what Sweet Baby Inc. is about, and why they get hired to work on games. They stated in their mission statement what they're about, and that's putting wokeness and DEI in video games, which quite specifically is pushing an agenda. Now, why is this considered potentially a win for Ubisoft? Well, you have this. This comes to us from CNBC. Ubisoft shares skyrocket 33% after report Tencent Guillemot family considering buyout. Shares of French video game publisher Ubisoft surged more than 30% on Friday after the media report that Tencent and the firm's founding Guillemot family are considering a potential buyout of the company. Bloomberg News reported Friday that Tencent and the Guillemot family, which are both minority shareholders of Ubisoft, are considering a buyout among other options after the company lost more than half its market value this year. One possibility currently being discussed is a combination of Tencent and the Gilmont family partnering up to take the company private, the business news agency reported, citing people familiar with the matter. So why is this being considered a potential win for Ubisoft? Well, it seems like the market and shareholders are very into the idea of a buyout or a partnership to take the company private. We can see that by the massive increase in share prices following the announcement that this is a potential idea that they are now seriously floating. That said, there is some suspicion going around now involving Ubisoft and the greater video game industry about the use of consultation companies for wokeness and DEI and pushing agendas in video games, and really in general the use of certain agenda platforming and inclusion of bad mechanics and other elements that seem to be tanking video game developers in the West. This new conspiracy seems to be stemming from the idea that those, either within the company or from a consulting company working on the games as well, are specifically trying to ruin the game developing companies, to devalue the companies, to allow them to be purchased by foreign investors, specifically the Chinese market. Because Tencent, the one that is driving these conversations about taking the company private, the one that seems to be all for a buyout, Tencent, who is a recent share purchaser and minority shareholder, is in fact a Chinese company. And as we all know, Chinese-based companies are required to have members of the Chinese Communist Party on their board. They work hand in hand with the government, and all major Chinese corporations have some level of dealings or connection to the Chinese government and the ruling Chinese Communist Party. This has led many in the cultural political sphere, as well as the gaming sphere, which seem to cross over a lot these days, to believe that the greater plan working here is that China is trying to find a way to buy into the Western game developer market and begin a process to gain a stranglehold over video games through the devaluing of Western gaming companies and then purchasing of them. This is a strategy we've seen several times used in things like housing, and it's not that far off to think that it could be used in different industries, including the video game industry. This is a theory that's been floated around for some time by people like Extra Zero, a very gaming industry detailed forward channel. I recommend you check him out. And I think is going to be a theory that's going to be picked up by bigger entities as we move along. But whether or not there is a grander conspiracy with all this that is yet to be fully realized is a matter of time to truly figure out. What we do know for certain is that Ubisoft is in a dire financial state, and it does seem like they are moving closer and closer to privatization. So if you own stock of Ubisoft, I'd get ready to be bought out pretty soon. But those are just my thoughts on the subject. If you have your own thoughts, go ahead and leave them in the comments. If you like this video, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like this video, I appreciate you watching all of it, and we'll talk to you again later.